It was raining that afternoon in Manhattan, one of those stubborn gray days where the sky seemed determined to cry over the city. Inside the penthouse on the 45th floor, everything sparkled except the heart of the man who owned it. Benjamin Wycliffe, billionaire tech mogul, sat in his designer chair staring out the window, sipping his third espresso. He had every luxury the world could offer, but he didn't have peace, or his wife, or his son's laughter. 3 years ago, the accident had taken care of that. Benjamin's son, Oliver, once a cheerful, vibrant 8-year-old, had been left paralyzed and speechless after a tragic car accident. The boy now spent his days in silence, eyes often vacant, only making the slightest of movements when touched or startled. Benjamin loved his son dearly, but he didn't know how to be around him anymore. He paid nurses, therapists, and educators, but nothing seemed to bring Oliver back. One Friday morning, Benjamin finally caved to the recommendation of a new agency. Special Hearts, they called themselves. Their promise: not just medical expertise, but emotional healing. Benjamin was skeptical, but he was also desperate. He approved the contract without even meeting the woman who would come. Monday arrived. Benjamin, dressed sharply as always in a navy Tom Ford suit, opened the door himself for the first time in years. There she stood, a tall black woman in her mid-40s, with gentle eyes, weathered hands, and a calmness that didn't match the city's rush. She introduced herself as Miss Laverne. No last name, just Miss Laverne. "Good morning, Mr. Wycliffe. Thank you for allowing me the honor of caring for your boy," she said. He noticed her shoes were soaked. She must have taken the subway, walked in the rain, but she didn't mention it. She only asked one question: "May I meet him?" That afternoon, Benjamin watched from his office camera. Miss Laverne entered Oliver's room, humming a tune. Not talking at first, just humming. A soft lullaby. She knelt beside him, eye to eye, and placed a cloth doll with big yarn hair next to him. She didn't say, "Good boy," or offer treats. She just said, "I'm here. You don't have to do anything, I'm here." Benjamin leaned in closer to the screen. Oliver didn't flinch, didn't move, but he was watching her. Just barely, but he was. Every day for the next week, Miss Laverne came in that same worn raincoat, same calm presence. She never used baby talk. She read books to him, stories with courage, loss, and laughter. She brought in music, sometimes old gospel songs, sometimes jazz. And every time, she sat beside him and just said, "I'm here." Benjamin began canceling meetings just to watch from the hallway. There was something about her presence. She didn't pity the boy. She didn't try to fix him. She simply gave him space to exist. One night, he caught her slipping out quietly. He offered her a car. "No, thank you, sir. The train clears my mind." "But it's nearly midnight. You live in the Bronx, right? I can arrange something safer." She smiled, that same quiet smile. "Some things money can't fix, Mr. Wycliffe." That stuck with him. The days turned into weeks. The air in the apartment began to change. Less sterile, less hollow. It started with small things: Oliver blinking more often, his gaze following Miss Laverne when she left the room. He responded slightly when she touched his hand. Then one day, he made a sound. Not a word, but a sound. A soft, breathy whimper when she laughed out loud at the end of a silly story. Benjamin rushed into the room. Did he just? Miss Laverne held up a gentle hand. He did, but let him do it in his time. Benjamin looked at her, this woman whose file he hadn't even read. "Who are you?" "Really? How did you learn to reach him like this. She paused. Her eyes dimmed with a shadow of something deeper. I've walked through some valleys, Mr. Wycliffe. You don't need a PhD to know pain. You just need to recognize it. He didn't press. But that night, he called her agency. They had no last name, no full history, just glowing references and one note. She changes lives. Benjamin found himself talking more to Miss Laverne each day. At first, it was about Oliver, what he ate, how he slept, then about books, then music. Then late one night over chamomile tea about loss, he told her about his wife, Vanessa. A force of nature, a wildfire in heels. She died in the crash. He never forgave himself. He had been driving. Miss Laverne didn't interrupt. She just listened. I lost my daughter, she finally said. 19. Gun violence. Wrong place, wrong time. She had a scholarship to Howard. Silence hung in the air like fog. How do you keep going? He asked. She stared into her cup. I show up for someone who still needs me. That's the only thing that makes sense anymore. From that night, Benjamin began doing something he hadn't done in years. He began showing up. He had breakfast with Oliver, even if the boy didn't respond. He sat with Miss Laverne during her lunch breaks. He brought home flowers. Not for her, just to make the place feel alive. 3 weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday, it happened. Oliver turned his head. He turned, his full head, toward Miss Laverne as she sang. Benjamin dropped his phone. He looked at you. He whispered, eyes filling. Miss Laverne nodded slowly. He's still in there. He just needs us not to give up. The breakthrough changed everything. Therapists called it a miracle. The neurologist said it was unprecedented, but not impossible. Benjamin didn't care about the medical jargon. All he knew was that his son was back, piece by piece. Over the next month, Oliver began blinking in response to questions. Then slight movements, a foot twitch, a finger stretch. Benjamin bought every therapy device known to man, but Miss Laverne remained the constant. She didn't over-celebrate progress. She just kept showing up. One evening, Benjamin found a small, worn Bible left on the kitchen counter. Inside, he noticed a photo. A young woman with the brightest eyes and Miss Laverne's cheekbones. He waited until the next day. Was this your daughter? Miss Laverne smiled sadly. That's Alicia. She had dreams bigger than the sky. He handed it back with care. She'd be proud of what you do. She'd laugh. Said I had no patience. But this boy, he gives me peace. That night, Benjamin sat in his son's room. Oliver was asleep. Miss Laverne sat knitting quietly beside him. You've done more in a few weeks than the best doctors did in years. I didn't fix him, sir. I just saw him. That's all some people need. Benjamin felt the sting behind his eyes. You broke something in me, Laverne. In the best way. I didn't know how numb I was. She put down her knitting. Sometimes the heart needs to break to let light in. He couldn't sleep that night. Her words haunted him. He made a decision the next morning. One that would change both their lives. Benjamin hosted a dinner. He invited board members, doctors, and Oliver's therapists. When Miss Laverne arrived, confused but graceful as ever, he stood and addressed the room. This woman, he began, taught me how to be a father again. He told them the full story. About her care, her love, her daughter, her strength. He announced the launch of a new foundation, the Alicia Project, dedicated to training, supporting, and uplifting underrepresented caregivers from marginalized communities. The seed fund, $10 million. and Miss Laverne would be its first chairwoman. Tears rolled down her face. She tried to speak, but he held her hand. "Let the world see what I've seen." Months passed. Oliver began physical therapy. He still couldn't speak, but he smiled now. He laughed softly. He pointed to things. He held his father's hand. And every evening, Miss Laverne sat beside him, humming those same lullabies. Benjamin would often watch them, holding his breath, knowing that somehow his broken heart had been reassembled by the very hands that life had once tried to break. In a world obsessed with power and wealth, he had found grace in the humblest form, in the quiet resilience of a woman who just kept showing up. And that changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to Lived Truths for more powerful, real life stories that inspire, heal, and remind us of the goodness that still exists in the world.